I missed you guys so much. What's going on? I still have my fun makeup on, but we've got a new outfit because you guys always want to see my new outfits. I told you I have to come correct with the looks. This episode is no different. I got to be serving a new look every episode. We are on season 1, episode 3, and today's episode is no credit, no problem. Some of you may have heard mo money, mo problems, but for this Southern mama, I was under the impression that having no credit meant that I was in the best financial position. So, the way that this episode is going to go, we're going to start off and we're going to talk a little bit about my relationship with money growing up. For that, I'm going to have to drag my parents into the trenches of this conversation with us, okay? So, Southern Mama and Southern Papa, we're going to talk about you for just a minute. My parents were very young. They were very hardworking, but they were very young, and we was poor. Okay, we grew up in a very rural area in a very cute double wide trailer. Shout out. I'm proud of it. I love it. It's still standing to this day, barely, but it's still standing. And I actually loved that we grew up without an excess of money. My parents were kind of magical because although we were definitely struggling financially, my parents always made sure that we had one, everything we needed, two, the most important thing I think, which was time with them. That's something that I think that kids don't get enough of. And there are, days where I'm super busy with work or doing the podcast or whatever, and I feel a little bit overwhelmed. And I want to make sure that I get that one-on-one time with my daughter because of this. When you have money to be throwing at your kids to do all these activities, you kind of miss out on that one-on-one time with them. Not saying that they don't need to do activities, but my parents did a lot of stuff with us. So they would take us hiking a lot. We would go camping. They did Girl Scouts, which was free. They did Girl Scouts with us. I think we had to pay for camps and stuff, but we could raise money for that as well. I danced competitively all growing up. It was one of the most important things to me in my life at the time. So I took it very seriously, and my parents took it very seriously for me. We could not afford it. So my mom would write the newsletter for the dance studio. She would make all of the programs for the recitals and the competitions or whatever. She would do all of the emailing back and forth with clients. I would go up to the studio myself and clean. And that kind of instilled in me if you want it, you can make it work mentality of you can either make it work and make money. I've always known that I was going to make money. I've always felt like I was going to be okay. Even in this weird, twisted sense when my parents, I've seen my parents get a car repossessed before. I've seen my parents, when they split up, both of them struggled to have their incomes split in half and not be sharing with each other. And I even then knew I felt like I was the person that was going to kind of save them. I know that sounds crazy, but I was like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm going to make money. By no means am I rolling around in any money or making a ton, but I'm okay. I feel comfortable. So yeah, my relationship with money growing up, or seeing how my parents were with money, they struggled. They also talked about it in a way where my siblings and I should say sibling because it was just me and my sister at the time, but we knew that they were struggling at the time. When we would go to the grocery store, they would say things like, we cannot afford that, or do not ask me for that. We cannot afford it. Stuff like that. And then my grandparents, who are probably the next closest people to me in my family, they were a lot more frivolous with their money. They would purchase kind of more flashy items, things that maybe weren't the best investments for them, or things that they shouldn't have spent their money on. You can't really tell people what they shouldn't spend their money on. But they were definitely more flashy. They had a house at the beach. They had a house in the bigger city that we lived in. They wanted to build a mountain house. They just did more with their money, and they weren't making a ton of money, but they just spent it differently. They spent it like they knew it was coming back. Let's put it that way. So I saw kind of both sides of it, and I just found myself somewhere in the middle. With that being said, other than the little comments now and then of, we don't have money for that, we can't afford that, don't ask me for that, I don't remember ever having a conversation with my parents. I know that my mom had like a checkbook stolen, and she talked to us about that and was like, having your identity stolen or having people steal money from you is the worst feeling in the world. That's really the extent of the money conversation that I remember having with my parents. Or with my mom specifically. My dad, he's not going to have like deep, long conversations really, but love him to death. But it's going to be my mom. But I don't remember her really talking to us about it other than that at a younger age. Now it's a little bit different, but so that was kind of what I saw with money growing up. So from that, my first memory with money is I remember having money hidden in my closet, and I think that it needed to be used for groceries or something, and they were just going to put it back, but I noticed before it was put back like that day or something. Which I'm sure contributed to my thought process of I will be the one that saves you. And it was like $20, or maybe they had to use it to pay for like a field trip that I was going on or something like for me. I know it was, used for a greater good than whatever me at age 7 or 8 could do with it. But I remember that money not being there that I had put like tucked away. And it did give me a feeling of fear. I don't think my parents had the best credit in the world, but I never talked to them about it. So I always, I would talk to my grandpa, my great grandpa about it, and he would just be like, you don't ever want to be in someone's pocket. You don't ever want to owe somebody money, which is great advice to a point. He would say things like, if you don't have it in your paycheck, you cannot afford it, which I still believe is true, again, to a certain extent. So fast forward to, I'm age 25, 26, and I'm working full time now. I'm no longer a student. I was a student a little bit later because I had my daughter. I didn't go to college right away. I worked a little bit, went to community college, got my associate's degree, started to go to a 4-year college, but the loans were just kind of racking up on me and it was getting really overwhelming. So I started working full time. And I got to the point where I was considering, I had a 1-bedroom apartment that was like a really good rate for me. I lived in an amazing town. My daughter went to a phenomenal school, but it got to the point where I was like, okay, maybe I need to look at a bigger place, or I want to look at upgrading my car. And when I went into the bank to ask about these things, like I really was starting at ground zero. I was like, I don't really understand other than my student loans that I kind of got without fully understanding. I don't really understand what this loan process is. Like if I wanted to get a bigger apartment or if I wanted to get a car, how do I do that? They said, well, we need to run a credit check. They had me fill out the information. They ran the credit check and they were like, oh yeah, you don't have any credit. I said, yeah, I know. I was so proud of that. Let me tell you something, honey. If you don't have any credit, they don't know if you're good or bad with money. And that is what I didn't understand. Okay. I thought me not having credit meant I was not in anybody's pocket. I didn't owe anybody any money. I had never taken out a credit card. I had never purchased anything. Even when you go into like Old Navy or something and they're like, do you want to open a credit card with us? I was always like, no, because I have money in my bank account and I will pay you cash right now or swipe my debit card. That was difficult. When they said, you don't have any credit, and I just smiled from ear to ear. I said, I know. Can you believe it? I am 26 years old and you've never got me. You have never tricked me once. They said, no, I don't think you understand. That means that you cannot qualify for any of this. No credit is worse than having bad credit. That blew my mind. I was so upset. I felt like I had been going without because a lot of my friends would go into, I worked at a boutique at the time that sold expensive clothing. They would go in and I would have to wait to get our paycheck and we would get these little gift cards that we could use in the store. And that was the only time I could afford to get stuff in the store was when I had the little gift card. they would walk in and put stuff on their credit card. And I'm like, we don't get paid until next week. I know how much you get paid, girl. I get paid more than you. How can you afford this? Like, oh, I'll just put out my credit card and I pay it off on the 15th or whatever. And in my head, I was thinking, oh, these silly, silly girls. Like I am, and who knows? I don't know what their financial situation is. Maybe they are in a bad situation now. I don't know. But at the time, I felt like I had been going without for so long. I felt like I had kept myself from getting tricked into this credit loophole for so long. And then when I feel like I'm at a place where I'm making decent money, I want to put my money towards a bigger purchase. And I wasn't able to do it because I didn't have any credit. So the way that I'm explaining it to you is the way that I wish that it was explained to me. So I hope that it's helpful. If you do not have a credit card or any credit built up, it is as if the bank does not trust you because they cannot see how well you handle larger sums of money. Try to think of it this way. If I told my 11-year-old right now, here is $100. I want you to go into the store and just get what you need. But at the end of next week, you need to give me the $100 back plus interest. So I want $115. Some 11-year-olds would spend that $100 and not even think about how they were going to give it back to you the next week. It would never cross their minds. And some adults are like that too. They don't care if it's going to take them 2 years to pay you that $100 back. And then other people are more immediate and they want to get you that money, or, in this made up scenario, kids would be like, I'm not going to spend it all. I only need $20 and I'll give it right back to you next week. That's all I can afford. If you've never given somebody that challenge, so if you've never had a larger sum of money than you've had before with credit and you don't know how to manage your money or your spending, they're not going to give you $10,000 worth of credit for a car. Devastating. I was devastated learning this. I have to give a little bit of a shout out to The Financial Feminist. I think that her podcast was helpful. There are other financial podcasts. Obviously, there's dozens of them. I did like the way that she spoked. I don't know. I like the way that she discussed money. I liked the way that she kind of like, I just broke down the way I was raised with money and then the way my parents, treated money. I kind of like seeing the full picture before I hear how people got to where they're at now. So that's why I used that analogy, because I enjoy listening to it in that format on her podcast. So shout out. But I decided then that I was going to take an approach towards getting my credit score up, getting, a healthy relationship with money. I did not want to have a frivolous relationship with money and just spend and spend. But I also didn't want to have a fear. I didn't want to be scared of money. I wanted it to work for me. I wanted it to work to my benefit. So what I did, because I was 26, and it's kind of like some people will say with the job market now that they will apply for these jobs and they'll say, oh, you don't have enough experience. And it's like, yeah, how am I supposed to get experience if no one's going to take a chance on me? That's what it felt like with credit cards. I would apply to credit cards, take a hit on my credit, and then they would turn me down. And I was like, at the time, I probably made like $30,000 a year, maybe less, but it's like, I make $30,000 a year. I'm applying for a credit card for $500. And they would say, no, you don't have any credit. We're not giving it to you. I would get very discouraged. I was very upset. So then I had to try to think of other avenues, and I actually talked to my younger sister, and she said that she had a prepaid credit card. So I went that route. I actually had to save up for 2 months of my paychecks because, it was just me and my daughter. I was supporting her. So I didn't want to take away from any of that income, obviously. But I saved up. I got $350, which is what I needed to put down for this. I'm pretty sure it was $350. It was either $300 or $350 at the time. And this was in 2020. So I decided that I was going to put $300 or $350 into this account, and I was only going to buy gas. I lived a stone's throw away, honey, from my job, and my daughter's school was in our neighborhood. We could have walked. Seriously. So I'm like, I was barely spending any money on gas. So I tried that for a little while. My younger sister's really good at math, and she was like, no, like you need to spend 15% of the max limit. Spend that every single month. She did the math for me. She told me exactly what I needed to be spending because I wasn't about to sit through and do that. But so I think I ended up needing to spend at least like $85 every single month on that card and paying it off immediately. So I would put $85 a month on there, pay it off, put $85, pay it off, put 85, pay it off. I think after like 8 months, like 6 or 8 months of doing that, all of a sudden when I go to check my bank account, I had gone from $350 to I think $1,000 limit. Scratch that. I think it was $500. They'd given me a $500 limit. And then a few months later, after I had continued doing, I think I bumped it up to like $115 a month. I continued doing that cycle of putting $115 and then immediately paying it off. And I was only purchasing items that I was already purchasing. So instead of just swiping my debit card for gas, I was using this credit card and then immediately swiping my debit card or transferring it over because I was so nervous of having to pay interest. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure I didn't have interest for like the first couple of months. Oh, nope, scratch that. It did have interest immediately. After a year, yes, a full year, after a full year of this little inching along process of putting a little bit of money on, paying it off, putting a little money on and paying it off, they gave me a $1,000 limit and sent me the $350 back. Y'all, honey, when I tell you getting that $350 back into my bank account, I thought I hit the jackpot. I was like, cha-ching, mama's rich, baby. We got $350. Whoop, whoop. Because it had been a year. You don't think about that money anymore. And when you're not making that much money, $350 is like, I am rolling in the dough this month. So I was very excited to get that money back. And I still have that same credit card because if you keep that same line of credit open, it just kind of looks like you are capable of managing a larger amount of money. I've learned that as well. So I kept that credit card open. So then I was ready to take my next step. So the next step, once I had gotten that credit card actually on a credit limit and I wasn't kind of playing around with my own money, because I was. At first, I put my $350 in there and I was playing with my own money. Then they kept my $350 locked in, but extended me an extra $200. And once they realized that I wasn't going to go crazy and start spending that $500 every single month and not being able to pay it back, they sent me my money back and gave me a larger limit. After that, I was ready to take an additional step. And so I really was thinking about a purchase that I needed to make. I knew I wasn't ready to purchase something as big as a vehicle. My vehicle was running fine and I actually still have the vehicle I had then. So glad I didn't purchase one of those. And I wasn't ready to increase my rent or anything. Things were a little bit more shaky with the job market. I knew that I was going to be switching careers soon. So I wanted it to be something that was just a baby step. So I decided I needed a new laptop. That was something I'd needed for a while. My older one that I had used for school a year or two prior was giving me some issues, and I've always wanted a MacBook. I just thought they looked so sleek, and I felt like I had made it once I had a MacBook Pro. I wish they sponsored me, but they do not. So shout out to MacBook Pros. This is actually what I am recording this podcast on right now. But anyways, I went to Best Buy and I opened a Best Buy credit card and I purchased one MacBook Pro. This story is crazy. Spoiler alert, story time. No spoiler, actually, just a story time. So I went into Best Buy and I purchased a refurbished MacBook Pro. One thing about me, even my jumpsuit that I'm wearing right now, it's vintage, honey. It's used. Someone else has loved it for a while. When they were done loving it, I'm ready to love it. Open arms. Give it to me. I'm happy to recycle for you. So if I could save, I think I got like $450 off because someone had opened the box and was like, yeah, I don't want this one. I looked at it. There was no scratches. They were like, oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. At the time, they had something called the Geek Squad. They may still have it. I'm not 100% sure, but they were like, it's Geek Squad tested. It's practically new, but it's $450 off. I was so excited. I said, I want that one. I'm going to need a Best Buy credit card. I want to open a Best Buy credit card. They ran my credit. I got it. And I got 18 months interest free, which I was really excited about. So the thing about interest, if you have no idea, and I didn't, I had no idea. So just like we were talking about earlier, if we let the little kid borrow $100, you would expect the $100 back plus a little bit of extra. So you want $115 back. If they don't charge that interest, how are they making money? They are dependent on you not being able to pay that credit card off in full in order to make money, honey. I am here to tell you, only put on credit cards what you absolutely have to, because why are you going to be paying a bank's bills? Don't do it. We're not doing that. So I knew that Best Buy offered this program. It was either 12 or 18 months. I'm pretty sure it was 18 months of interest free if you opened a credit card that day. So the MacBook, I think, was $1,200 once I got the discount from getting the used one. I was very excited about that. And I purchased the refurbished one. And it was $1,200. The refurbished one was $1,200. I think the original was like $1,650 and I got it for $1,200. I was excited. I get home, I log into my refurbished MacBook, and it doesn't work. It's just a spinning wheel where that little login button comes. If you're not a Mac person, I'm sorry. But if you are, when you first open it, it like shows you how to set it up. I still had the original box with all the instructions, and it was not giving me that box to log in and set it up. I was so frustrated. I got back in my car with my refurbished MacBook and I went back to Best Buy and I said, this says that it's Geek Squad approved. I just purchased it today, less than 2 hours ago. I need you guys to fix it. They could not figure it out. Y'all, when I tell you that that manager had to come over there and hand me a brand new MacBook in the box, brand new, that would have been full price. I got a brand new laptop for $400 off because I had bought it that day. And I guess somebody missed something in a Geek Squad. I don't know, but sometimes you just have to just say, amen. I'm just so happy. Thank you. Things work out. I was very stressed. I had made one of the biggest purchases, honestly, one of the most expensive things other than my education that I had ever purchased, and it didn't work. And I was so frustrated and so devastated. But then I just took a deep breath. I was very kind to everybody working there because it wasn't their fault as far as I knew. They were helping me as much as they could. That's one of those things, those Southern things, kindness, kill them with kindness. Go in there as frustrated and as flustered as you are, be as nice as you can because they're just doing their job. And they were very, very nice to me. And I walked out of there with a brand new $1,600 laptop and I had paid $1,200. I'm just saying. So now that we've moved past that story, this is another thing that they will try to do to get you. So, and I'm not saying there is like a big bad person out there intentionally trying to get you to have an interest rate. But again, that's the only way that they're going to make money on these credit cards. So when I purchased that laptop, they said something like, oh, you only have to pay $60 a month. Okay, well, I'm no mathematician and I never have been, but 60 times 18 or 60 times 12 is not going to be the full amount that I needed to pay this computer off. So what they had done is it was almost half of what I needed to pay it off in full every single month. Because I was like, I at least have to pay $100 a month. It was $1,200. And so if I would have only paid the minimum, which was going to be like $60 a month is what they were telling me I had to pay on it, I would have gone past the 18-month period and then I would have had to pay interest for like an additional 5 months. So I would have ended up paying almost $1,600. So what I did was I paid, I think, $150 a month on it to pay it off early just to be safe. I was comfortable with that $150. It didn't put a strain on my resources. And then doing that, it made my credit score go up significantly just paying for that laptop. And I had that other credit card. Now that credit card limit, once I paid off the laptop, went from $1,000 to $3,500 credit limit. I didn't need to spend that much, but that's like how quickly those things move. And I had gone from a credit score that I think was in like the 400s. The only thing I had against me was my student loans. That was the only credit they'd ever seen from me. And so doing those two things took me from that to the mid 700s for my credit score. Again, I was very thoughtful about it. I decided to take my time and just do baby steps. And this process, I mean, I did a year of the first card, having the $350, and then a year of paying off the credit card. So we're 2 years in of this process. So it's not quick. I'm sure there are ways to do it quicker. This is just my personal experience. And now I still have that same credit card. I think it is Capital One, in case you're curious, that I was able to get a secured credit card, which means that you put your own money forward and you're paying off credit with using your own money. And I still have that same Capital One credit card. That's actually the only credit card that I have. And I'm really excited about that. So this is like the where I am now is I have a credit score in the high 700s. I was actually approved to purchase my own house. I am really not making a ton more money than I was back when I was working in that boutique, but the way that I have managed that money and I've put money into savings, I have my 401k savings. I don't have a ton of savings, but I am very proud of where I have gone with my credit and my savings. So, my little love bugs, no credit, no problem is not a thing. You're going to need to have some credit or you will have problems. And I wish that we could live in a time, because money is such a powerful tool in this world. I wish that we spent a little bit more time educating people on how they could use money to their advantage. I know that I am not the number one or the best spokesperson on money. I don't know every card out there. I don't know who has the best points, the best interest rates. Like I said before, there are hundreds and hundreds of podcasts out there that focus on that one specific goal. And I encourage you to listen to them, do your own research, find something that's going to work out best for you. But I'm just here to share my story and let you know that you can come out of the trenches. Like, I did not think that it was going to be possible for me to get myself from where I was financially. It was almost like something smacked me in the face when I realized how far behind I was. When you think, oh my gosh, I'm 25 or 26 years old, how am I this far behind? It's a scary feeling. So being able to go from that to where I am now, where I'm very comfortable with money, I feel like I can use money to my advantage. My next step would probably be to have a credit card, either specifically to earn money towards travel. So like a Capital One venture card or whatever it is. It might not even be Capital One, excuse me if it's not, but like a credit card that is specifically geared towards money towards travel. So it'll give you points for every dollar you spend. You'll get points towards hotels or Ubers or whatever. That might be my next goal. Or, my partner always says that it's just as good to get a credit card that gives you points towards just money. So for every dollar you spend, you get 10 cents, and that kind of adds up as well. So kind of looking into that, and that'll be my next step. But we made it, and you guys can make it too. If you have any questions, let me know. And as promised, I am going to spend this time answering 3 of y'all's questions. So I had posted on Instagram and on TikTok, and I asked you guys to ask me anything. And I'm going to be posting that more often because I do want to be able to go through and answer y'all's questions. I did not ask ahead of time if I could say your username or anything on the podcast. So I'm not going to be sharing those this time. I will make sure to ask that in advance next time. I just don't feel comfortable, shouting out somebody if I didn't ask them ahead of time. So I'll make sure to ask that in the next post. But I have had this question multiple times, and I had it multiple times on this post. I've had people ask me what I ask for when I get my lips done. I have never had any work done. Even though I think it is slightly flattering that you guys thought that this needed to be medically enhanced. These are my natural lips. I've never had my lips done. Thank you for asking, but I don't ask for anything. This is just what I was born with. The next question that I asked was again about my lips. You guys asked what lipstick I was wearing. I wear Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk when I'm wearing this nude shade. It's Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Lip Liner. I just line my lips. Oh no, excuse me. Charlotte Tilbury Foxy Brown is the nude. I'll line my lips, put on chapstick from my dentist office, rub it together. And when I'm wearing the darker shade, it is Charlotte Tilbury's Pillow Talk. Not sponsored. I'm just letting you know. So I thought it was funny that out of like the 65 people that answered that comment, 8 of y'all asked about my lips, either whether I had lip fillers or what lipstick I was wearing. I thought that was funny. So the next question I had is, what is my favorite thing to do in the Carolinas? So if some of you guys do not know, we grew up in North Carolina and we live in the Carolinas still. We love everything about the Carolinas. We like going back and forth from the beach to the mountains. That's kind of the best part about living in this part of the South, is that we're so close to both. You're about 2 hours away from the coast and 3 or 4 hours away from the mountains. So that's probably my favorite part. I did ask that person to specify if you wanted me to talk about specific restaurants. I do have a page, Southern Mama Approved, where we rate and kind of give you guys a scale 10 out of 10, whether or not we liked a certain restaurant or experience that we had. So recently we went to a Durham Bulls game, so we did just rate that. We liked being in Durham. We went to a restaurant there too, so keep a lookout for that review. But yeah, those are my 3 questions. If you want your question answered on our next podcast episode, make sure that you leave a comment, or I guess on TikTok or Instagram or anywhere. You can also leave it on Shelbs the Stylist. I'll check both of them just because both of those accounts are actively going and growing, honey. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.